Hello, everyone. This is Nicholas Peter Ugero. Today, I have the pleasure and honor of having Alexander John Courtney and Odysseus Andrianos on my channel today. Second time they've both come on. I've had them on individually. Great to have them both on at once. This is going to be excellent conversations. Thanks so much for coming on, guys. How you guys doing?
Doing great.
Doing great.
Awesome.
Happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. Happy Sunday. Great start to the morning, in my opinion. So, we're going to be talking about like natural law, also shadow work, and just working on yourself, things that you can, like information maybe that you don't know, aren't aware of, things that we can kind of expand upon later on outside of just this interview discussion. But a few things that came to mind. I know Odysseus has a webpage or a website where he has a program for people. It's called the Inner Circle program, and it's the Alchemy Healing Academy. And some things that stood out to me when I was looking at that before we went on was the 5-element theory. One of his beginning presentations, Body Keeps the Score. It's based on a book. And then also the Trivium, he just did a presentation on that. Alex and I were participants in that. Really good information. So Odysseus, if you just want to start off with like just an introduction of yourself, and then just maybe delve into some of these things, anything that stands out to you.
Yeah, sounds good. So at the most foundational level, the work that I'm doing with the Alchemy Healing Academy is to create a one-stop shop for preventative mental and emotional health care. Our Western medical system is completely failing us. Now, when I say that, Western medicine is amazing in an emergency, but most people are being drugged into oblivion. Many doctors are not trauma informed. And a lot of therapists, the good ones, are too expensive, and it's not really working. So my goal in solving that problem is providing a system that's affordable so people can learn how their mind works, how their bodies work, how their emotions work, and most importantly, how to embody the soul. As you mentioned, the 5-element theory, and there's some ancient wisdom based upon Taoist philosophy. If you get into the roots of shadow work, it's really based on ancient Taoist philosophy and the capacity to understand how to embody the darkness. Most of society essentially is running away from our darkness, all the pill popping, all the numbing of our pain. What we actually have to do is we have to face our pain, and in facing our pain, we can transmute it. That's the essence of alchemy, the transmutation process. And so a big part of what I'm doing, like, I just love teaching this wisdom. I just think it's fascinating. Like, I got my degree in kinesiology from San Diego State University, and I was always just fascinated by the human body. And the last year and a half, I've been getting trained by an Oriental medical doctor and a Taoist shaman to become a certified quantum healer. And so the whole vision for that is blending shadow work with quantum healing to teach people how to heal themselves. Please don't mind my dog that's running around. But that's why I'm here, and I'm excited to be chatting with you guys about all this wisdom. Hey, calm down.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Alex, if you want to just give another brief introduction of yourself, and then I know that we're talking about like just what you're all about, tiny action steps. I know that you're into fitness and all that stuff, and self-mastery and shadow work. So if you just want to give an introduction to yourself and what you're all about as well.
Yeah. Thanks, Nick, and thanks for the introduction, Odysseus. Already picking up on some connections between us two. Like that body of work. Thanks for showing up and doing that work. As Nick said, my name is Alexander John Courtney, and I am a teacher, and also I'm an adventure explorer. And I've been on the adventure of a lifetime for the past 35 years. I'm a twin. I've been a business owner for 12 years, and I've always been very curious. For the past 12 years, after I got my degree in exercise sciences, I went into healthcare and as a personal trainer. And just like you were saying, Odysseus, is I recognized that the healthcare system, it was failing people. It's great for crisis care, crisis management, and intervention. Amazing. But then it's not very good for long-term care and health and lifestyle. So after I healed from a chronic back injury, I started my own business because I wanted to make a difference. And I recognized just through simple listening, compassion, and communication, people were able to create a new context of their reality so that they could start taking responsibility for their life in a more integral way. My model is really based off of movement and lifestyle. I work off of a model called the 8 Essentials, which are just the fundamental pillars of what it means to be human. And from there, we start a dialogue and we dive into those things and we do specific movements, how the body moves, kinesiology, Odysseus, how the body moves so that we can move in a natural way, so that we can anchor in the mental and emotional and spiritual things. One of the things I noticed in healthcare is that there's so many different modalities, so many different techniques and strategies, which are all great. But I noticed that one of the things that's lacking is physical movement and how to actually physically move, create a structural that's integral, and also be able to stress that in a way where you can grow and not break down. I've been working with my brother for the past 12 years, and in the past 5 years, I've really dove, especially after the world shift in 2020. I really shifted into more of the natural law side of things. My work has naturally guided me there. So really happy to be here, really happy to be in this conversation with you guys as we share this great work together. Typically what I'll do is one-on-one training. I also have been doing online movement mastery classes, as well as consultations and evaluations, getting out in the community, lecturing, doing things like we're doing today. So happy to be here today, guys. Thanks.
Absolutely. And then, yeah, so thank you for that introduction. And I know last week, me and my girlfriend, Lindsay, we went over and we did a session with Alex. It was really, really good. And just yesterday, I was grounding outside, barefoot in the grass. I was listening to Odysseus's, what is it? The audio meditation for calming the nervous system. So it's like basically 7 minutes, 43 seconds. And so I was doing that, but then at the same time, I was doing the stretches that Alex showed me. What is it? It's spinal hygiene. Yeah. So it's going side to side, twisting, and then also forward and backward. And so that's helping out my blood flow, helping out my neck, helping out like just the way I'm feeling, and then grounding at the same time. So I'm starting to add these things into my daily habits, and I've been feeling a difference so far. It's only been, a few days, about a week, but that's been really good. So I appreciate both of you guys and what you guys are doing, because I'm able to take, your knowledge, your information, and be able to improve my life in certain ways. So I appreciate that very much. And so I guess one thing would be, if we're talking about natural law as well, just right versus wrong, what is a right, what is a wrong doing? That's a basic concept for people. We can break that down fairly easily, I'd say. So if any of you guys have, a good description of that, just feel free to jump in.
Yeah, well, personally, I find that when it comes to right versus wrong, like most of us are in our heads too much, and we need to learn to listen to our bodies. So, like when I hear the word like right versus wrong, to me, it really comes down to energy. And when we talk about the healing side of that, it's like really what's going on within our nervous system. And like when people are in their heads too much, they can get a distorted perception of what reality is and what right versus wrong is. And when we actually tune into our nervous system, when I say tune in, a lot of it comes down to our nervous system being calm enough to actually access that space where we talk about natural law. Like our body has innate wisdom, and if we're not allowing ourselves, and that's a key word, allowing ourselves to drop into our bodies and trust our intuition, then we're going to be out of alignment with our natural instincts. And that to me relates a lot to natural law, and specifically with Taoist philosophy. One of the shaman taught me that most people, their chi energy is up in their heads too much. And so just like you were talking a moment about the grounding, as you ground yourself, the key word, like I said, is allow, and allowing the chi to drop into the body. Because I often say to people when I'm doing shadow work or trauma coaching with people is that we have to get the chi into the body, because the body has a message for you. And oftentimes when we have trauma, the body's like, we're afraid of it. We don't want to listen to the body because it's discomforting to feel that stuff. Most of society is numbing those things. And so when we figure out what's going to be right versus wrong, I feel like that there's like a subjective and objective truth there. But like when we look at ourselves and like what our body has to tell us, we have to listen to the innate wisdom that our bodies have, and we have to work on whatever blocks we have. When I say blocks, what it really is bridging a gap to who we are and to who we are truly meant to be at our core and our essence. And our body has that innate wisdom. And so it's really about navigating whatever blocks we have so we can step into who we're meant to be. And all these tools that we're talking about and we're going to talk about are the ways to navigate those stories, limiting beliefs, and whatever could be blocking us at an unconscious level and keeping us from accessing our potential physiologically. That's just my opinion. So I'd love to hear you guys' feedback.
I think you mentioned something really cool is that, and what I listen for is that the truth is discoverable. And I think that humans innately know what's right and wrong in a given situation. And if our nervous system is dysregulated, if we're running stories or patterns in those certain types of frequencies, we're going to react as opposed to respond. So, as you were mentioning, Odysseus, like this is like comes back to me about the movement. Like if you ground, if you move your body, you're able to explore these possibilities. and you're able to actually make more rational choices despite the circumstances. And so that's why I teach training. Like, that's the modality, and training is preparation for your life. And when you're doing your movements during your training, you think about your purpose, you think about your knowledge, you think about your relationships, you think about your life, and you move these energies through physical movement. So then it's like, when push comes to shove, when you've done that preparation work, you've taken that time for yourself, that self-love time, right? I love myself enough that I'm going to take my time to myself to really develop myself. Then when I'm subjected to these situations that aren't perfect, because let's just face it, we live on planet Earth, we're able to make those more rational choices. And we can also physiologically be more in that parasympathetic state. I think it's beautiful how you mentioned the nervous system, because that's really what we're dealing with at the end of the day, right? That first system, that electric system.
Yeah, I wanted to mention, kind of piggyback off you said, the nervous system, and it is an electrical system. And one of the things that I found is extremely powerful is that, we talk about calming the nervous system down. We're going to get into the natural law stuff. So it's like the law of gender is a big part of that, because they're all connected. But to me, like, one of the things that I do my best, and like, I know we're all men on this call, but like, I coach a lot of women. And when we talk about electrical energy, that's masculine energy. We talk about magnetic energy, that's feminine energy. So a lot of people don't realize how powerful nothing is, just sitting and being, because that's when we access the parasympathetic nervous system, right? Because most people, you want to be able to like do breath work to activate the vagus nerve and just drop into your body. But coming back to the point, it's really about how do we harmonize the dark feminine. One of my friends, she's a coach, she actually teaches the dark feminine. A lot of it really comes back to like getting back into our bodies, getting the nervous system to be calm, getting into that space where we're harmonizing the electric and the magnetic energy. Most people, they're overstimulated, and the nervous system is so jacked up from the elevated cortisol levels and the elevated allostatic load that they're out of homeostasis, so the body cannot heal itself. And so, like, personally, I love that we're talking about the nervous system, because in my opinion, the future of health, healing, and medicine really comes down to the emotions and the nervous system. And you're right, it's all about movement, and people, like, they can move, but they have to understand how that movement is actually moving blocked chi, stagnant energy, and that creates tremendous access points. And also, it's really about realizing what your energetic leaks are. I mean, like, when we start to mitigate those energetic leaks, then we're, instead of wasting energy suppressing emotional pain, we can integrate that emotional pain. And that's the core essence of shadow work. I think any type of coaching is integration. You could be the greatest coach in the world, but it's all about how the people that you're working with, their integration process. Like, you go to a great retreat and you come back and go right back to the same life. How are you integrating that stuff? And a lot of that comes down to the programming and the nervous system. And like I said before, how are you calming everything down? How are you honoring that downtime? Because our society is punch drunk in love with being over busy. I was like that years ago too, running my 2 gyms and running a film studio and like making 6 figures, but I burnt myself out. And I know, other than you mentioned chronic back injury, I had back pain that was showing up. My body was telling me to slow down, but I wasn't listening. So I speak from experience how much it was causing me health problems, because I was too up in my yang, masculine, electrical energy. And as I learned to calm down and really honor my feminine, resting yin energy, that was a massive catalyst to my healing. So a lot of the work that we're doing is actually like 100% movement, but also slowing down and honoring our healing journey. And there's a fine balance between that yin and that yang energy. And that's why I love having these conversations.
Yeah. With the movement too, I love this adage, and I was thinking about this, and this came to me the other day in one of my meditations, is that your movement is an expression of your life. And so it's not just physical movement, like we're talking mental, emotional, spiritual, all these things. And through the 8 essentials, they're all movement, but what kind of movement is it? Because you're right, we are overstimulated, over electrified, over everything. And it's not a balance. We have to embrace that darkness, the yin energy, as you were mentioning. And I noticed too is that when we're in these reactive situations, it's almost like when you catch yourself, you're actually in your feminine, because you're flowing around it, and you're not being reactive and decisive and in physical action right away. Rather, you're letting it be, and you're giving. I like the term giving it space, and you're weaving around it in your mental and emotional space. And this affords you the opportunity to ask yourself, well, what's possible? What's going on here? And I see and observe myself reacting. And I feel like that's the heart of it. Like for the shadow work, it's like you're aware of it first, and then you acknowledge it. And then you can be in action or non-action with it. but ultimately to manifest, like it's going to take a action. Well, it doesn't have to be like a big action. I actually assert that it's going to be a very tiny, it almost is like, really, that's it. I've noticed like that a lot of the time is the first step, something very small and innocuous that seems like it's nothing, but it's really actually everything.
Okay, you guys are just ping-ponging, and this is absolutely amazing. I knew it was going to be this way. I really love it, especially Alex, super, like, and that's basically what you're kind of getting at. It's basically observation, giving things space, being able to not be in that exact moment, but seeing yourself in that exact moment and just having that bird's eye view, the third person kind of perspective. It's one really good book that I read. It's what is it? The Happiness Trap by this gentleman, Russ Harris. And he basically talks about, he teaches you how to meditate without ever using the word meditation or meditate or anything, just different things you can do, closing your eyes, thinking of or observing 5 sounds, 5 smells, 5 things that you can feel, maybe your back or the chair that you're sitting on, all this other stuff, the way your hair is positioned, whatever else. And also like with your thoughts, maybe putting a celebrity's voice to it. So if you think about Arnold Schwarzenegger saying, "I'm an idiot," like maybe you're able to see it in a different way than if you're like hearing yourself saying it, and you kind of make it more of like a joke, or like singing your thoughts. I remember I used to do that when I used to push carts for Costco. I was so upset all the time, and I would just start singing instead, and I would immediately de-escalate like my nervous system and get back to a more calmed, non-reactionary state. Oh, there we go. Star of the show. But
What's his name?
This is Bruno. I'm at my girlfriend's house. She's dog sitting this wonderful dog. He's really nice.
Aw.
Hey Bruno, thanks for showing up, bud.
Yeah.
He's a lover for sure.
Yeah.
My girlfriend left, so he's all over me. I'm getting lick bath.
Oh, nice.
Who doesn't love a tongue bath? I tell my girlfriend, when's my next tongue bath?
And then a couple of things that you guys said, like energetic leaks, integrating things, being in our heads too much. Yeah, like absolutely grounding and because I could definitely see myself doing that, having higher cortisol levels, being overstimulated, not taking the time to really reset myself. I had a really bad incident that happened on Friday night. I damaged one of my devices that I use and cracked the screen. It's not even functional right now. I was super upset about it. I was honestly crying. I was not in a good headspace. So I immediately thought, I'm going to go outside barefoot. I'm going to sit in the grass and then just chill out. Like nothing, no phone, don't bring my phone, just sit out there. So I did that for about 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And I felt definitely a lot better, a lot more calm. Because I was saying to myself, I can't believe this. I can't believe this. And I'm like, no, I have to believe it in order for me to even get past it. I can't say I can't believe it because it actually happened. So that's not going to help me overcome the situation and how I'm feeling at that moment. And I'm going to not get over it. And then, so I think that's what's happened a lot of the times. There's things that I look back on throughout my years of hurting people, doing all this other stuff, and then just having regret about it and not just accepting that it happened. And then what can I learn from it? Because I know Alex mentioned that at one point too. It's observing it and then being able to see yourself in that process, and then what are you going to do with it? Inaction or action, and then tiny baby steps. That's all really good information. I like that, all that stuff a lot. So thank you guys for bringing all those things up. And then when we're talking about giving yourself some space, like in your mind, like giving those things space, whatever it may be. The Bruce Wayne analogy, Odysseus, I thought that was really good when that was in your book, the hero and the villain journey, and how we can just have that fork in the road where we take things that have happened to us in a different way than some other people. So if you guys want to expand upon that kind of thing, I find that to be really interesting.
Yeah. Well, I love, Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey, because I really feel like I'm studying marketing right now, because it's like, you have the greatest business in the world, but if you don't have good marketing, you ain't getting no sales, right? So I read this great book recently. It relates right to what you're talking about. And essentially, the work that we're doing is, I'm going to speak about it from a marketing perspective, is, in the past in marketing, it was interesting about this book that I read. It's called The Story Wars. And it talks about how the future leaders of the world aren't going to be the people with the most money. It's going to be the people who tell the best stories, because people will resonate with your story and they're going to want to be involved with the work that you're doing. Because in the past, most marketing was based on disempowering people. Your dick's too small. Your tits are too small. Your car's ugly. You're not good enough. You're ugly. You buy my product, you'll feel better. And it's disempowerment marketing. And the thing I love about this book is it talked about how the future of marketing is empowerment marketing. And essentially, like the work that I'm doing, Alexander's doing, what you're doing too, Nicholas, is we want to empower people. We want to have them see themselves as Luke Skywalker. And we are Yoda, essentially. We're 3 Yodas here, okay? And we are basically, the work that we're teaching is the lightsaber that people use to conquer Darth Vader, the darkness in their lives. And I also want to mention that the beauty of Darth Vader is like being able to acknowledge our dark side too. And so like on this process of empowerment marketing, by share with people how powerful they are. You know, I know Alexander, like you've probably experienced how much innate wisdom the body has and our capacity to heal ourselves. And I think a big part of what we're doing is reminding people how goddamn powerful they are and recognizing the wisdom that our bodies have. And so a lot of that comes down to, you know, giving it space. I love that we've talked about that a bit because, like, you know, even look at like ancient Japanese culture, they would have these sand gardens and there was nothing but sand. And it was all about honoring space. And it's like seems so profound, but it's such a simple concept, is like allowing space between our thoughts, allowing space and having like proper boundaries in our reality too. So I think a big part of this is like, with all the work that we're doing, is we have a system that's broken, but that's a beautiful thing. It's an opportunity for us to awaken in greater ways than ever before, possibly in history. And so I always love to share that with people, because a lot of people, when we talk about like energetic leaks, it's really about just navigating where we're stuck. And the stuckness actually reveals where we're truly meant to be. And I often say that breakdown precedes breakthrough. It's just like when I build muscle, when I'm training my muscles, I'm breaking them down, but that allows the breakthrough to occur for me to grow stronger. So what's happening in the world right now, a lot of people, they don't understand the psychology. They don't understand how their bodies work. You know, it's cool. It's great for business, you know, and the stuff that we're doing. But we have to figure out, how do we empower more people to be that Luke Skywalker, to conquer their demons and manifest their dreams? And it really comes down to like that harmony between the mind, body, heart, and soul. And I think that's the core of what we're teaching here, is that living in harmony with natural law, living in harmony with 5 elements, and living in harmony with our soul. The core teaching, I mean, like my symbol for my business, the philosopher's stone, is essentially an embodiment of the soul. And when you embody your soul, your body heals. If your soul is not embodied, you're not going to heal. And oftentimes the soul will leave the body if you have trauma. And I think that's a big part of what we're doing, whether we're doing movement healing or doing breath work or grounding. It's all about embodiment of the soul. And as we do that, that's how we heal humanity, is the embodiment of that soul. And often our trauma, I read this in a book on Chinese face reading. It said our trauma, sometimes our soul puts us through an experience to wake us up to our Ming, or what's called our destiny. And so if anybody's watching this later, remember, sometimes the trauma we experience was something that we may have needed to experience to show us who we truly are. So just keep that in mind. So we always think, oh, that was so bad, or like that was so traumatizing. It's like, sometimes in the core of that, that's a teaching for you that you may have created for yourself. And it's a great opportunity for healing yourself. But that's why we have these calls to support people with that change and being able to navigate that darkness. So, yeah.
So I like the last thing that you said, Odysseus, and what shows up as an adage that I first heard from my brother. And he said, it's all for us for our dance to completion. And it's all for that alchemy, and it's all shifting into our possibility. And when we can look at everything as an opportunity, then we can really recognize that it's really building us up to complete our journey. And, you know, what I heard, especially with the Bruce Wayne story, the hero and the villain, so the distinction that I first hear is that there's only really one distinction between the hero and the villain, is the hero, something traumatic and terrible has happened to them, and they say, I'm not going to let that happen to humanity. I'm going to be a difference. And what the villain says is that humanity hurt me, so I'm going to hurt you back. That's really the only distinction. So it's like the lack of integration, going into the victim mentality. And if we can look at our shadows and not fight them so much, we actually invite them to the table and have a cup of coffee or tea or smoke a joint or whatever the hell you want to do with them, whatever they're asking for. What I've recognized is that when they get acknowledged, they actually don't want to fight us so much. And this is why I believe, and what I think, and this is my theory, why there's so much autoimmune, which all disease really is, because people are fighting themselves. Which brings me to my next distinction too, is like what people really have to start looking at with healthcare. It really comes down to this one saying, and this I heard this from one of my recent mentors, is look at the context in health and life, is that no matter what's happening to symptom, disease, the body is always healing and adapting. It's always healing and adapting. And it's up to us to listen and communicate with it so that we can really get on the same page, so we can listen to it. And I'm sure that you can attest to this too, Odysseus, like with like your kinesiology and that type of work, is that like people can come back from anything. And I've seen it. Obesity, heart disease, diabetes, all these big names. And like people have come back from it. And it's because they've taken responsibility for it. The last thing I'll mention is, before I turn it back over to you guys, is you mentioned happiness, Nick. And recently I've been really thinking about this for the past 10 years. And people say, I just want to be happy. I just want to be happy. I just want to be happy. That's my goal. And, you know, I don't think that that's the best way to think. And I don't think that that's the best goal. What I think is happiness is a consequence of how we live. So my goal is to be responsible. And what does being responsible mean? It means honoring how I came into this lifetime, like really looking at my family and like really honoring that and like really being honest with myself. It looks like looking at my burdens, looking at my big life challenges, those big obstacles that you were mentioning earlier, and really like learning from them, being on the adventure of a lifetime. In my experience, if we do that, the consequence of our living is that we're happy because we've taken on the difficult responsibilities, which aren't so difficult a lot of the time. And also like we're honoring the self. And I noticed that when we honor ourselves and we're aware of who we are and our unique energetic imprint, we then inherently are humbled and grateful how we come into this world, and we naturally want to help people. And like, that's our natural state. It's like we come into this world like crap in our pants, completely defenseless. So we're humbled and grateful because our parents take care of us. And guess what? We've all had traumas as children, but we've all made it here. So it's like, let's be humbled and grateful for that. So like, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity.
Yeah, and to go, God, you guys are killing it. I love it. All right, so I know that Alex has a hard stop at 12, so I want to also keep it short. So if it's under an hour, that's pretty good in my book, nice and concise. So we have still 30 minutes. A couple things that you guys have said that I want to break down. When we talked about the story wars, Odysseus was mentioning people like that's going to be like the future of marketing is like the stories, like who can, and self-empowerment, all that stuff. And then it's also a book. But then Game of Thrones, spoiler alert, the end of the series, it talks about like who can come up, like they chose the king that has the most wisdom, basically, has all the stories and has like remembers like the past and can like identify that stuff. And then and then Alex, when you're talking about or no, Odysseus, when you're mentioning breaking down to break through, when you're talking about your muscles. And then Alex, when you were just talking, you were mentioning, you know, thinking about your relationships. How can you show up? How can you like be there and like honor things, be able, have your ability to respond, be a certain way. But then you're also breaking things down in your mind of what your values are or what's important to you. Like your principles, whatever else. So you're breaking down, and then you're be able to break through whatever happens to you because you have the ability to respond in a certain way to where obstacles come before you, and you're able to, you know, bypass those or integrate those, so to speak, not bypass them because you don't want to bypass it. You want to see it head on. And then embodying your soul. That's obviously where, yeah, like when you're talking about the autoimmune issues, it's just not, you know, it's fighting yourself. So embodying your soul is super important. And then when we're talking about trauma, dissociative identity disorder is something that comes up to me because Odysseus, you mentioned like the soul leaving the body. So then like what would happen in that scenario where they have amnesic barriers, where they have, you know, different alters, and then sometimes they're not even aware of each other. Like that's something that's super interesting, how that, and sad at the same time. But I think one way to, yeah, like calm the nervous system, be able to break down things, just like have more of a center, be more magnetic in your disposition is like what Alex does. No cell phone Sundays, basically, like no real input for the most part, you know, being more isolated, being more reflective in your thoughts and all that stuff. I think that's all excellent. Yeah, if you guys have anything else you guys would like to share really quick, I do want to kind of go back to the right versus wrong and just kind of break that down really quick, just like and how we can kind of integrate that with like maybe actions we're doing or things we're choosing to do, and also vices, wrongdoings. But yeah, if you guys have anything that stands out, feel free to jump in.
Yeah. I wanted to mention, I love that you mentioned the autoimmune stuff. I think a contributing factor to the autoimmune stuff as well is inflammation. And that's a huge part of it too. I think they go hand in hand because like the inflammation, it's like an itis, like tonsillitis, arthritis. Like we don't, like doctors don't know what's the cause of fibromyalgia. We don't know. I'll tell you right now, in my personal opinion, it's emotional trauma stuck in the body. That's the inflammation in the joints. Western doctors, we just don't know what's causing. We don't know what's causing the cancer inside of you. I'm sorry. We're gonna give you drugs for the rest of your life. It's gonna be great. You're gonna keep coming back for more drugs, and it's just like it's ridiculous. So I mean, yeah, I think that's a huge part of it too. And then you also mentioned, Nicholas, identity disorder, and like I just want to sit on that for a second. Identity disorder, because when we talk about psychology, psyche is the study of the soul. Okay, like psyche means soul in Greek. So a lot of I know I keep coming back to the soul stuff, but this is really what it's all about. So psychology is the study of the soul. When you experience trauma, we start to disassociate with who we truly are. And we live in a very traumatizing society. That's why this phone call, like the work that I'm doing, building a community, the work that Alex is doing with building his community, we need more community support to help us to embody our soul. And we specifically talk about the identity. I've been very blessed to work with world-class coaches, and they've always told me that all change happens at the identity level of our consciousness. Identity level of our consciousness. And when I say that, 80% of success is mindset, 20% is strategy. 80% of success is mindset, 20% is strategy. We really have to have our mindset in the right space, and that often has a lot to do with our identity. Just like I often say this to people, it's okay to be depressed. It's okay to experience anxiety, but it's nearly deadly to identify as a depressed person, to identify as an anxious person, because that's a shift in your consciousness. That's a paradigm shift. And often the work that I'm doing as a coach is helping people to I recognize those unconscious identity attachments that can actually lead to a lot of the autoimmune disorder, a lot of the inflammation in the body. And so that's a lot of where the transmutation process and the breakdown of understanding like what's going on at the cellular level, at an atomic level, and the density, like that's where, like for me personally, I feel like cancer is just a density within the body. And as we mitigate our thought patterns and our processes, like the people who don't believe they're going to heal from cancer, they don't. And the people that do, they do. My mother beat cancer, so I can speak from experience. She actually just got tested and she's still cancer free after 2 years. So like little clap for that. Go mom. Right. And so like the big part of that too is like just having support, and like having community, just like we're doing here. We're creating awareness. We're creating community, communication, and unity. We need that more than ever, specifically after COVID. And I love that we're all men on this call too. I love working with women, but there's so many men that need support, and they need to be able to have a safe place to talk, because otherwise they're stuck in that identity of not feeling good enough or not worthy, or they feel like a victim. And then that often shows up as physiological disease too. So yeah, just like I said, I love just being on this call with you guys and supporting more of a brotherhood of men doing this type of work and having these conversations, because that's how we heal in community and in tribe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the communication is the acknowledgement and creating a safe vessel where people can communicate and we can air things out and witness things. And like, to go back to psychology, that's what a real therapist does. That's what real counseling is. It's about exploring things and witnessing them, so you can actively choose, as opposed to being pulled by these puppet strings. And to go back to what you're saying about the best storytellers, I feel like in ancient societies, that's who the leader was. It wasn't the person with the most money, as you said. It was actually a lot of the times the person with the least money. It wasn't about the resources. Rather, it was about the experiences. And because these leaders experienced things and knew what it was to be a human, they could be a leader and relatable to people. That's why they were leaders, because they have done the work. And if you've done the work, you can then start to guide people along the path. And then they'll actually listen to you, because it's like, well, why would I listen to you if you haven't done the work? If you've never climbed a mountain in your life, I don't want you to help me climb Mount Everest. That doesn't make any sense. So we've had to have done the work. And the people who have done the work and who actually have the knowledge and the understanding and the integration into wisdom is action, by the way. When people have done that, people actually listen, because they've actually done the work. And there's a simple activity that I like to do when my mind is going something showed up for me, if my mind is going, or if I'm having a rogue thought, as I like to call it, or a story showing up, is I ask myself, I'm like, who does this belong to? And I notice that if it doesn't belong to me, like it's crickets, like there's no noise. And it's like kind of like you call that person out who's like a bluffing, and it's like, oh. And it's like, okay, well, thanks for stopping by. And then it just disappears. Now, I noticed that if it is mine, what'll happen is like it'll be very direct with me, like very direct, and it'll tell me exactly what it is. And then from there, I'll like, okay, like let's sit at the table, like let's sit down and let's talk about this. Like, is there anything else you want to say? And typically, it'll speak to me, and it doesn't speak to me typically in words. It speaks to me in feelings. It speaks to me in pictures. It speaks to me in colors. Sometimes there'll be words, but they're very, very simple. It's like one or two words. It's like, and that's my best, that's one of the best advices I like to give to people. A lot of the times we think of things so tangible, like it's going to be a word, it's going to be this. But like a lot of the times it shows up and communicates to you as a feeling or as a color or sacred geometry or something, or someone shows up in your life and it's like, it leads you down that trail. So when we get to that point, then we can be curious and we can start the conversation. I noticed is that the last thing I'll mention is after that, when we really decide to take responsibility for our life, that's when I notice that a lot of the world's problems stop. And it's the law of correspondence. Now, I'm not going to say that there's not terrible things going on. There are. And you know what? Credit needs to be given where it's due. You all know what I'm talking about. We know this. But what I've recognized is that if I try to go and fight these things that are unseen and I really don't have the faculties or the capabilities, it's like I'm totally shooting myself in the foot. I'm totally getting off my path and I'm totally becoming a victim. And I noticed that a lot with people is it's so easy to go pick a fence, but can I keep my house organized? Can I hold a job? Can I have a good relationship with myself and my loved ones? Am I getting enough rest? Am I moving? Am I getting outside? Am I developing my knowledge so I can actually develop my purpose, so I can really be on my path? And I noticed that when we do that and we interact and we really influence our small sphere, what I notice is that the world's problems start to dissipate a little bit. And that'd be my best advice for people is take responsibility for yourself first and like really own yourself and like that self-mastery, the only mastery, right? Internal monarchy, external anarchy. And like with that self-mastery, which is the only mastery, right? No masters, no slaves. It's only us. Then we can start to be the difference in the world and we can start to show people. But until then, it's very difficult to change the world if I'm not in order myself. It's actually impossible. It's a logical fallacy. It's not possible.
Yeah, and when we're talking about like revolutions versus evolution, people that overthrow dictators a certain way, whatever else, they tend to lead back to the same sort of path, or if not, make it worse. Yeah, and going into self-mastery, embodying your soul, going that with right versus wrong. Just piggybacking off of what Mark Passios kind of talked about, just the murder, assault, rape, theft, trespassing, coercion, lying. So there's 7 of them. Right in the middle is theft. So it's all severities, different severities of stealing. So the higher you go, it's going to be murder, and then just like hurting someone's body, taking their ability to associate with who they want sexually, just lying. You're taking somebody's, informed consent, their ability to make a rational, knowledgeable decision, and then so it's all just don't steal. Basically, do no harm, take no crap, self-defense as well as non-aggression. And I feel like maybe some people, in terms of having nervous system issues or feeling like they're not doing their actual life's purpose, maybe they actually are. Maybe their job is supporting a system that is actually doing harm or is doing things that are bad. So things that we're not consciously aware of are, we're tied to that and helping support it. And maybe like on a body level, if we were to listen to our body and get back into our space and have the masculine left side of the brain and the feminine right side of the brain working more together instead of chronically in one side or the other, then we're going to be able to, see the pitfalls or see the inconsistencies within our principles. Figuring out what our principles are is also super important. It's basically first things first. So if you don't have your principles in order, and then also what you value, you're going to be directionless in a sense, and being able to be, like Alex was saying, pulled by a puppet master. You're just getting your strings pulled. You're not sure where they're coming from. Is it unconscious or subconscious, or are you consciously doing certain things that are maybe causing harm to other people? And then, but also understanding that things that people do, like myself, like smoking weed, maybe definitely abusing it, I'd say for myself, not doing it for a purpose at a certain time. That's more of a vice. It's not really doing any harm per se. Obviously, it can degrade myself to where I do make bad decisions based on being addicted to X, Y, or Z substance or, action. But it's more so seeing that that's almost like a coping mechanism. It's something that I'm doing reactionarily to then, suppress certain things or to make myself feel a little bit better, comfort myself, even though it's not really going to remove that. It's only going to, put a Band-Aid on it and just kick the can down the road, just passing the days, making time go by faster, avoiding the uncomfortable feelings. So yeah, in terms of right and wrong, I think like there's been plenty of time where I've worked at a job and I left it because I didn't agree with X, Y, or Z, getting my temperature taken. You don't have this is ridiculous. I don't consent to this, but now you're going to have me not even be able to work because I'm choosing to not do that. It's just stuff like that. And then me dumpster diving at Aldi. Oh, you're doing something wrong. It's illegal, even though we're throwing it out. And then standing up on that, losing my job based on that, but just standing in what's right and figuring out, and also don't take my word for it, but with the 7 wrongdoings, if you choose consciously to not do those things, you're going to see positive things come up in your life. Choosing to be responsible, be responsible, be honorable, focusing on what's important to you, your principles, your values, like and you be consistent in that, and you understand that it's not where it's like fate per se, but if you're like every action has a reaction. So that's like the fate. That's like the destiny in terms of, that's how I kind of see it. Your destiny is just basically your thoughts and emotions, and then your actions then result in events in the world. And then there's, consequences to that as well. And it's just a constant web of interactions and things like that. And it's definitely something I need to embody more. So Alex and Odysseus, you guys are both people I both look up to. You guys are both older than me as well. You guys are my elders, but I see you guys almost like as mentors, good role models. And that's who we have to try to surround ourselves with. There's been people I've surrounded myself with that were super toxic. And because I'm toxic, I'm not really realizing that. So Odysseus, you mentioned like shadow work being a superpower. Absolutely. You'll be able to read people a lot easier, pick up on their energies, like see that they're not, in line with you on their path and what they're doing and how they're thinking and feeling. Just the whole aura aspect of things, and people being really sensitive to that, people being able to actually see auras. I've met people that have actually been able to see auras, which is super interesting. But yeah, we only got 15 more minutes, but if you guys have anything you guys want to say in response or anything that shows up for you, I know this is easily one of my best videos. I'd say the amount of information in this jam-packed, really, really well done. I love this. Thank you guys so much.
Cool. Well, I love that let's talk about auras for a second. So I've been a coach for 20 years. I'm like really laser with my coaching. In the last year, I got certified as a quantum healer. I mentioned that a little bit earlier, learning from this Oriental medical doctor. And some of the stuff that I'm still learning this stuff, I actually have a coaching session with the mayor of my city tomorrow. So I'm really excited to do a quantum healing session with her. When we talk about the auric field, and this is scientifically proven through Carillion photography. They can actually measure it. So you have this kind of protective sheath and this energetic field around our bodies. But if we consume drugs or we experience trauma or we consume too much alcohol, like I quit drinking 8 months ago, and because part of it was just to strengthen my auric field. Like years ago, I was working with a shaman. They're like, your auric field is like Swiss cheese. And my ego didn't like that. All these holes in my auric field. So I was like, damn, I got some work to do. And so but that's a beautiful thing, because I can say that I had to go through that process. Like, damn, like me drinking and smoking weed and like using whatever drugs, like it's not helping my auric field. I never even like put that together. And so I've done a tremendous amount of work to strengthen my auric field. And also with that said, part of me quitting drinking was so that like I'm actually able to test chakras, balance people's chakras, doing quantum healing work that I learned from this Oriental medical doctor. And I've seen just to take a step back from my own experience, I had like my lower back pain problems. I spent probably $20,000 on Western medicine. It wasn't until I met this quantum healer, and in 3 sessions, he did these quantum healing techniques, and my back was completely better because there was issues with my energetic body. And one of the things that I just want to touch on briefly with that is the only thing you take with you into the afterlife is your energetic body. I don't care how much society sells you the idea that owning another yacht, a car, or a house. Don't get me wrong. Like I wouldn't mind having a nice house out in the woods somewhere, But the key thing is that it's really about your auric field, your energetic body, and your subtle energetic field, because, the subtle energy has a lot to do with our emotions, and it has a lot to do with our psyche and our soul. And the more we're able to embody that makes things a lot easier for us, because one of the things that Alex was mentioning was like energetic hygiene, essentially. Like you were saying, like spinal hygiene, I think was it right? Something like that. So yeah, like we can explain it on different levels, but to me, it's like energetic hygiene. You have blocks running through your chakras and you're wondering why your lower back pain won't go away. It's like, well, there could be some kind of energetic attachment or cord from a past relationship that's siphoning your energy, siphoning what's called your Jing in Taoist philosophy. And so, I mean, the thing I love about talking about this is like we're educating people. Most of the stuff we're talking about is not taught in most of society. It's like we're not taught how to balance a checkbook. We're not taught how to manage our own emotional energy. Two things that are maybe equally as important, you know. And so we need to empower people by teaching them how these tools work, because a lot of it comes down to, when you were speaking a moment ago, Nicholas, it really comes down to cause and effect. Since I want to come back to the natural laws, we have to recognize the causes creating the effects. And just to touch on where that relates to Western medicine, most Western medicine is only dealing with effects. I know Mark Passio says the analogy, I love using this. It's like rearranging the deck chairs in the Titanic. You've done nothing. It's like, you guys, guess what? The deck chairs look great today. We're on a sinking boat, bro. It doesn't do anything. I just think it's the most hilarious thing, because, like, you know, you're like, sometimes I'll be talking to people and they're like, yeah, I'm taking this new drug to fix this problem. I'm like, cool, you rearranged the deck chairs, bro. You haven't done anything. And I want to hate on like all of Western medicine, but we really have to realize, like, oh, we've hit an iceberg. We need to do something about that, and really getting to the root causes, because that's where the real change occurs. And I say root causes, it's all about going into those roots, and those roots are in the darkness. Those roots are in the shadow. And as the roots grow, then the branches grow. And we have to be able to navigate that darkness so we can heal ourselves.
I love that you mentioned the root versus the symptom. And like, healing is simple, performance is simple, life is simple, training is simple. And if you look at the Titanic example, what would have been the cause? Well, we wouldn't have hit the iceberg. It's that simple, right? You should have steered it off, and you could probably go into the mental state and like of the captain and all this stuff. But like, really at the end of it, it's like, we should have just been this far this direction. And I noticed that a lot of the times that is what healing is, getting to that root. It's something super simple. And you were mentioning too about Western medicine. It's like, it only stays in the symptom plane of existence. It doesn't get to the cause. And like, now they're doing like slick techniques and strategies. They're not getting to the root. They're not. They're just not, guys. They're not. Because the heart of allopathic medicine is that there is an emergency. Let's put a tourniquet on this, stop the bleeding. And if you have really bad pain, we'll give you a painkiller and then like send them on their way. But then it's up to you to heal. It's not up to them. That's not their job. So it's like, I don't want to bash them, but it's like, that's just not their lane. It's not their lane. They deal with crisis care and emergency. And honestly, guys, thank goodness for it. It's great when it's in its lane. There's one other thing I wanted to mention. See if I remember. Oh, okay. So going through the chakras, like the energy, and what I want to remind everybody who's on this call is that you may be hearing a lot of words and like, whoa, like that's big and complicated, but it's actually very simple. So like a brief breakdown of like the chakras, like if you're looking at each of the energy systems, just the 7 in the body, it's like, if you look at the root, it's like, do you have your tribe? Are you in good relations with your family? And again, I'm creating very simplicity, like an access point. The second one, orange, like, am I creating in a good way? What am I creating? Third, solar plexus, right? This is the yellow. Am I living my purpose? Can I stand upright with posture, right? Am I in my purpose? The heart, am I heart-based? Am I in alignment with my feelings? Throat, am I expressing my truth? Am I sharing my truth? Third eye, do I see my vision? Am I clear on my vision? And my crown, am I connected to my highest self? And so like, it's really that simple. That's the energetic healing. And we can go as deep or as shallow as we want, but that's just how simple it is. And, you know, there's more chakras than that. We won't get into that now, but it's really that simple. And for me, what it comes back to is the 8 essentials, which is purpose, knowledge, relationships, rest, prayer, meditation, nourishment, getting outside, and movement. So this is the way, like, I keep it very simple too, because with that, people are then able to dive into the complexities of things. And Odysseus, after hearing your meeting, I'm like already thinking like, oh my gosh, like I'm making connections between our work, because relational thinking is really important. We'll put a book note on that one. I'm thinking about like how you teach about natural law. And for me, like which I've learned, but my focus is self-mastery right now, and creating self-mastery within natural law. So it's like, as we master ourselves, I can then take in and process natural law that much better, and actually in the true trivium process, where my processor is actually processing it.
I know. I'm so glad you mentioned the trivium because I was literally about to bounce right back into that because I think that's super important because when you're talking about the chakras and all that stuff, and I've heard about the Kabbalah and the way that that's set up, it's got the 3 paths basically, and it also lines up with the chakras. And we also have the tarot deck that also lines up with the chakras and the macro, microcosm, and the lesser and greater decks. They're both 11 apiece, and how
Yeah,
that works
Lesser
together.
Arcana.
Yeah, a major and minor arcana. Yeah, and but then also, Odysseus, you just had that excellent presentation on Trivium. So like you had do you have that excellent artwork that you had, that triangle? You're muted, sir.
No worries. So yeah, I mean, I always tell people to simplify the trivium method. It's like really about combining the 3 and the 4, which is the 7 liberal arts, liber meaning to free. Yeah, and then the 5, which is our 5 senses, and we use our 5 senses to assess the right angle to make a decision. And like the key thing is like often people don't realize is that you've been taught the all the tools of the trivium method, but you weren't taught them in order. And so the key thing here is how do we put them together? Grammar, logic, rhetoric, arithmetic, music, geometry, and astrology. And there's different spin-offs of those ways of explaining it. But the whole key essence here is how are we using our 5 senses to create our reality, utilizing words and numbers. And so like for me, even like as a public speaker, as a coach, like the way that I communicate my rate, my pitch, my tone, my inflection, that is what helps my rhetoric to resonate with other people. Because essentially, like, I mean, I like using the trivium and blending it with neuro-linguistic programming. And not that I want to get too deep into that subject, but essentially neuro-linguistic programming is what I use to coach people because it's all about figuring out what is people's rhetoric, what is their blueprint for their reality. So whenever I coach people, the first thing I'm doing is recognizing what's your blueprint, because the blueprint will actually reveal to me what's going on subconsciously, what's going on unconsciously, where is your shadow actually running your life. And that's a big part of utilizing the trivium, because even just if you're not a coach, but you're communicating with somebody else, you can recognize the incongruencies with where their language structure is being expressed and their actions. And so people need to know, that's why it's such crucial wisdom to understand the trivium method and how it perfectly relates to shadow work, perfectly relates to neuro-linguistic programming, perfectly relates to healing, because we have to recognize incongruencies, like when we talk to a doctor and they're gaslighting us into taking pills for anxiety when we could actually just maybe like mitigate our restless leg syndrome with a different diet and maybe more movement. You know what I'm saying? So people need to be taught this ancient wisdom to learn to think for themselves, because we all have to utilize those skills. Otherwise, the system's going to use us, and it's feeding off of our soul and our energy. We have to take that power back. I think that's the essence of everything that we're talking about, embodying our soul and taking our power back from the broken systems that are feeding off of us. And that comes down to us educating people, honoring people, and loving ourselves authentically. And that's a lot of the conversation we're having here today, is empowering people to love themselves authentically so they can embody their soul and we can heal that generational pain to live our lives like a bunch of fucking wizards.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys are killing it. You guys are like, just like my thumbnail, you guys are my cornermen. You guys are like helping my bruises out, give me pats on the back, putting some ice on it. You guys are doing a hell of a job, and I very much appreciate everything you guys have been saying. We got 5 minutes left. Alex has to dip out. If you guys wanted to give some last words, I know you guys can go on for another 5 minutes just yourselves. I'm barely going to say anything. Just keep it going. Let people know where they can find you possibly. I already have all the links and stuff like that in the comment or in the description as well. So I have your link tree, Odysseus. Alex, I have your YouTube and your Instagram as well. So
Yeah, I'll send you my link tree too, Nick. I guess first and foremost, it gives me so much hope and faith to have these conversations. I've been having a lot of these conversations with a few people and myself, and it was great connecting with you, Nick, and it's great connecting with you, Odysseus. Like, really acknowledge that. And what's showing up for me too, for everyone who's listening, who's dealing with something. Recently I've been thinking about this thing, and the saying goes is like, we don't solve the world's problems, we outgrow them. So I don't think that we're going to solve famine. I don't think we're going to solve murder. I don't think we're going to solve theft. These are ideas that are always going to be here. It's more along the lines of how can I outgrow them, and how can I transmute these energies, because it is energy at the end of the day. So how can I outgrow these energy fields? And when these things do show up, I'm integrated. So it doesn't cause a reactionary volatility in myself. Rather, I can be the difference. And I noticed that 999 people out of 1,000 want to do well. There is like that one psychopath who's absolutely crazy. Like there is. But like, as I say, it's not a very good strategy. And I don't think many people are actually like that. Very, very few people, because it's not a good human strategy. So it's like, how can we be the difference in these situations? And I notice is like when we do that, that builds our confidence, and that really helps us discover our purpose when we are the difference. And it's also a reflection of the work that we've done. All this work is simple, and everyone who's listening, and if you're dealing with anything, you have support. You have 3 people on this call who really are a stand for this work. And again, guys, like you all showed up. That's the first step. So I really appreciate y'all showing up today. And yeah, thank you so much for taking this time on this awesome day, gang.
And just really quick, Alex, where are you located? Because I know you have a studio. I know that you actually do one-on-one calls. So if there's anyone locally that maybe watches this, just let them know about that. Just super quick.
Yeah, the best way to contact me is via my link tree, and also just giving me a call. I'm all about talking to people, especially with the one-on-one sessions. I work out of Highland Park, and I also work out of Lake Forest in Tangible Studios. But I also
What state?
Illinois. So Lake Forest, Illinois, Highland Park, Illinois. And also I see people across the country on Zoom and phone calls. So I'm across all platforms, and I'm seeing people on all platforms. Thanks, Nick.
Yeah, absolutely. Odysseus, Alex might have to leave by the time you're finished, but either way, we're gonna be closing up anyway. But yeah, anything that stands out for you, where people can find you, how to get into the Alchemy Healing Academy. I'm part of that. I love it so far. A lot of good resources.
Yeah, beautiful. I just want to touch on what Alex said about outgrowing, and I love that your analogy. And I think a lot of that comes down to, it relates perfectly to shadow work. We have to have stronger roots, and those stronger roots come with facing our darkness. And like, if we do not face our darkness, we deliver ourselves to darkness. And so we need to start having ugly conversations about the darkness in society. And we have to support people on facing that, because we can't know how beautiful we are until we face the uglier parts of ourselves. And so I think that's a big part of being able to outgrow and create those stronger roots. And just to share a little bit more about like what I got going on, I got the Alchemy Healing Academy. That's my logo right there. You can go to alchemyhealingacademy.com. I'm launching my Inner Circle coaching program. It's extremely affordable. It's only $30 a month right now. I only have a few more spots left at that price point. But we meet once a week. It's starting. We're kicking it off in September. You get access to over 30 lectures in my online school. And my whole goal, like I said at the beginning of this call today, is it's to make mental and emotional health services affordable for everybody, and to have a community, have support where we can have conversations like this, where we have more people involved and they can chime in and share what's coming up for them and provide the support that people need. And I also have a book called Shadow Awakening, which is available on Amazon right now. That's only $15. Shadow Awakening, the Dawn of Human Potential. And I also have a video course that goes with that book that you can access to on my website. And like the long-term vision is to build a community, build a tribe. Long-term, I'd love to create like an alchemy healer certification program. It's one step at a time. Like that's where like Nicholas, you getting into the school and just seeing all this beautiful wisdom that I've created over the past few years. It's really about empowering people and taking our power back from the broken system and manifesting our dreams. So anybody who watches this, please reach out to myself or Alex. I really appreciate anybody who's doing the work, and the more people we get involved, the better. So any way that we can support anybody who's listening to this, we'd love to help you out, because if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, build a tribe. And I'll finish with that.
Thank you so much. Yeah. It's 12 o'clock on the dot. Made great time. 12:01. Oh my God, we're late now. Okay. So, all right. So that's basically it. Thank you guys so much. I'd love to have you guys on again. I know that there's other channels, Gentleman Paul Enslaved. I want to try to have us go on there, because he talks about shadow work a lot. He's gone through a lot of stuff himself. He's probably got some really good stories, good wisdom, and he's kind of like one of those leaders, going through the act, like having that wisdom, having those experiences. So I think that's super important. But yeah, thank you guys both for coming on here. Have an excellent day. Thanks for everyone that's been watching, and anyone that watches in the future. Much love. Take care, everybody.